echo day, wishing me heart it was Sunday. Drinking wine and beer all the week, time for whiskey on a Sunday. So hello everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. You are all very welcome in joining me for this very special edition of Whiskey on a Sunday, which in actual fact really means whiskey on a Wednesday this week. So as I've been focusing on Irish whiskey lately during my online series, I thought it would be fun to maybe head across the miles a little bit and chat with some folks who are really front and center with regards to both Irish tourism and Irish whiskey. So with that in mind, I'm very pleased to share two different conversations I recently had. The first one with a man of immense talent, immense knowledge, and let's just say more than a great penchant for great crack. In that conversation, the first one, we talk a little bit about Irish whiskey in Europe during the 1990s when it was really booming throughout Europe. We also talk about some secrets as to how the Irish themselves like to enjoy Irish whiskey. And, you know, in addition to all that, there's some advice for those who may be new to trying Irish whiskey. And of course, a great big Irish hello to Celtic Crushers. For those of you that may have traveled on Larry Kerwin's 2018 and 2019 tours of Ireland, no doubt you will recognize my first guest. So folks, thanks for joining Somm4All here for this very special, indeed very special edition of Whiskey on a Sunday that's being released on St. Patrick's Day in honor of all things Irish. I'm very, very pleased to be joined by renowned accordion player, composer, musician, and as all the Larry Kerwin Celtic Crushers know from the 2018 and 2019 Larry Kerwin tours of Ireland, Private Irish Guard and driver extraordinaire, Frankie Mulcahy. Chiad mil felcha, Frankie, August, Taha Adam Gowiltu. Welcome, Frankie. I'm very pleased to have you join me. Thank you. How are you?
As we say in Irish. I'm very happy.
How was my Gaelic, Frankie? Did I massacre that?
It's not bad. You're not close enough for jazz, you know.
That's one of the things that have come out of the pandemic. I've had a little time, so I've been studying Gaelic online. So miles to go though, but welcome. So Frankie, this is the month of March that we're in. It's the month of all things Irish, certainly here in Canada and North America, as you know. And just I had some questions about Irish whiskey for you, just in terms of what you're seeing, because you are the guru and that, you know, hospitality extraordinaire person and seeing tourists and coming to Ireland. So I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit on what you're seeing and what your thoughts are, if that's all right.
No problem.
So Frankie, now of course, as a musician and composer itself, I mean, you've been with different groups and you're masterful at the accordion, honestly. As you traveled throughout the world on the music side of things, did you, when you were in countries across Europe, did you see a lot of Irish whiskey in the bars, or was it something of an anomaly to see it, if you recall?
Yeah, well, I particularly spent a lot of time in Scandinavia, during the 90s. So the Irish thing was exploded there. The Irish music scene exploded there. So of course they were trying to publicize Irish whiskey as well and Guinness together, But
that's the popularity of Irish whiskey, right? It's had this resurgence, I think, since Teeling opened up his distillery in '84, and it started to add to it. And that's why I was curious to see it. The 90s makes sense that in Europe it was booming. I mean, even here we're seeing it boom.
It was the Jameson whiskey I really saw on sale there over in Scandinavia at that particular time.
Good stuff. And then, pandemic aside, because of course travel now is a bit, is on hold, of course. But pandemic aside, as a driver and as a hospitality guide, the tourists that you were seeing, coming from all over the world and Canada, North America, do they talk a lot about Irish whiskey? Are they interested in learning more or trying it if they haven't tried it? Or are they asking you questions about it?
A lot of clients I would have on the bus would be talking about, when we get back to the hotel, we're going to have a whiskey and a Guinness. They didn't specify, but I mean, like a lot of them are definitely aware of the Middleton stuff, because, I've met a few people who would be, trying the Middleton.
And, as a true Irishman yourself, can you share what are you seeing the Irish themselves drink? I mean, we see brands over here, and there's a whole bunch behind me, and you know, we get all excited in North America when we see a new Irish whiskey come out. But the Irish themselves, I mean, you know, when you're in the pub, when you can go to the pub, what are you seeing the Irish themselves drink?
Because they probably drink at home themselves a little whiskey before they go out. And I'd say the total majority of them are Jameson drinkers, you know. Yeah. They are Jameson, kind of middle of the road kind of whiskey. You know, when we go out, I'd rarely see them drink it in the pub. The old guys used to drink it. You know, my grandfather was like the old breed. They always had, when they went to a pub, the first thing they had was, they called it a small one. It was a small measure. And while the Guinness would be settling, they'd have that little measure of whiskey, you know, by the way, to warm the stomach or something. And, you know, a little jug of water would be put beside it. You never see that anymore. It's a pity, because I used to love as a kid watching my granddad, you know, he'd have his little whiskey there while the Guinness would be settling, you know. And
that's a very important part of the Guinness, is you have to let it settle, right? I mean,
you do. And the whiskey's a great little, you know, it gives you the little time to have your little whiskey while it's settling, you know.
It gets you all set up. My grandfather.
Wow, I wish I could be there right now and down at the pub having my Guinness and the whiskey.
Sorry, it's torture. I'm torturing you. Oh, yeah. What advice, Frankie, would you have to someone that hasn't tried Irish whiskey? Would you have any advice? Would you tell them to, you know, don't be afraid, or dive in, or do you have any, you know, do you tell them to go slow, or any advice to the novice?
You obviously have to be very careful. I've fallen in love with whiskey. I mean, like, in the last few years now, and then, like, you know, I was saying the Black Velvet Canadian whiskey, my God, it's amazing. But I love it. I love a couple of whiskeys, one or two, before I have a couple of Guinness myself. That's my own personal thing. But I love it. I love the taste of whiskeys. And I was telling you about the Connemara, the peaty one, that's right. Really strong peaty whiskey. But I can nearly taste it in my mouth as I think about it. But I just love the different flavors of them, you know. I go for a couple of drops of water with my whiskey. That's the way I drink it. I don't like it with ice, but I don't like it neat. I can't be too strong for me, but a couple of drops of water in it, perfect for me, you know.
Opens it up a little.
Wow.
That's great advice. So Frankie, I know I'm going to have some Celtic Crushers that are going to be watching this video. So is there anyone you'd like to say hello to, or give a shout out to? I know you're in touch with some of them yourself.
Jane and Len, my God, Jane and Len are great friends of mine. Yourself, of course, Joanne, and what's his name? I just mentioned him. Oh God, Nancy and Jack. Oh God, Nancy and Jack, love them, miss them so much as well. I'm like, they're all great. I mean, like, I miss that gang so much. 2 years, nearly the majority of them were the same, repeaters, you know. But the crack, if you were learning the Irish language, of that just one word, just the crack is enough, you know. The crack, which C-R-A-I-C, which means fun, Gaelic for fun, you know. But wow, please God, we might get to see them the end of the year, you know.
I know that Larry's tours, Larry Kerwin, that is, who has a radio show on Sirius XM. He's planning to come see you in October with a lot of repeaters again. Unfortunately, we won't be able to be on that one, but you're going to see hopefully some familiar faces on that tour.
If there was anything negative about Larry's tours, it's just there's too much crack, you know.
Yeah, what was your line? I'm going straight to rehab after you drop us at the airport.
I was like, Jesus. I was like, what a crack that was. Like 6 days, like bang, wallop. It just was. But the memories they're just such a great bunch of people, you know. Great crack, you know. Anyway.
And that's Ireland, right? It's so easy to be in that mindset when you get to the country. Totally. It's so beautiful, and the people are so wonderful.
If you've got like-minded people that are with you, like on that tour, just they want to come on. When you come from the States of Canada, you come here, you want to have a good time, you know. You want to have the crack. You want to, you know, and that's exactly what they're doing when they come here, you know. And I'm the perfect man to show them the crack.
You certainly are. Now, when it is safe to travel, and that's a great point, when it is all safe to travel, again, and people want to go, for those that haven't been, the people want to go to Ireland, and, you know, especially if they want to go to the real Ireland, if they want to have the Frankie Mulcahy experience, and experience Ireland through your eyes, I mean, you're so knowledgeable in the history of the land and the language and so much. So the best place for people to get in touch with you to book their bespoke tour or for any questions, is that to email you, Frankie? Should they be emailing you?
Email me, whatever. Yeah, I mean, like you could email me first, and we could do Zooms or whatever afterwards. But yeah, absolutely. And I'll put them in the in the right direction if they want to. If they want to come to Ireland, I'll show them the best places. And the number one place is obviously the Kingdom. That's what they call it. The nickname Kingdom, the Kingdom of Kerry, where I come from. It's the most beautiful county. So
we were extremely fortunate to be part of to see that part of the island when we were on the tour, and words and photos just can't do it justice. It was just majestic. So
people come from the States and Canada here for tours, and they spend a lot of time trying to take it in the entire country. And for me, I would a couple of days in Galway. I'd spend 3 or 4 days down in Kerry. There's so much to see. Like, for example, you go to Killarney, people just stop for the night. They go on the Ring at Kerry, or they go to Dingle the following day. But if they actually stayed in Killarney for a whole day, there's so much to see. So much to see. Castles, the whole lot, lakes, everything.
And so that's why they've got a book with you, because you know all that
Absolutely.
stuff. So FMULCAHY62@gmail.com. Frank Mulcahy62@gmail.com. That's where you have to go.
F for Frankie and then Mulcahy. F Mulcahy62@gmail.com. Yeah.
So reach out to Frankie. He's going to talk to you. He's going to tell you the goods on Ireland, and then you can book your bespoke tour, and you'll see Ireland like you've never seen it before. Amazing. Frankie, I want to thank you very much for the great insights and for taking the time to chat with me today about Irish whiskey. I cannot wait to get back over to Ireland to see you, to see some family that's over there, and to just take in the majesty of Ireland that it is. Thank you so much once again.
My pleasure, Paul. My pleasure.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
So how much fun was that? So wonderful to see Frankie again and to get all caught up. Let me tell you folks, the crack on that Zoom call was at least 90. So just a reminder as well, you'll likely meet Frankie on Larry Kerwin's next tour of Ireland scheduled for this October. So if you're planning on going on that, you'll no doubt meet Frankie there. However, if you're unable to join Larry on that tour, or if you're looking for a more bespoke tour of the real Ireland, email Frankie. Seriously, folks, he is the person to guide you across Ireland like no other. So, again, here's how you can reach Frankie. I'm going to cover my face. So, fmulcahy62@gmail.com. Drop him a line. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so next up is my chat with a premium craft Irish whiskey distiller up in the north of Ireland, who not only shares some great insights into the continuously Irish whiskey scene up there, but also some very exciting news on his own distillery. So today I'm very excited to be joined once again by small batch spirits distillers Short Cross, produced by Radman Estates up in the north of Ireland, just outside of Downpatrick in Crossgar, or as I like to say, about a 7-minute car ride from my cousin Julie's place. David, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Paul, great to be here.
Now, David, for those of us here in Ontario and Quebec and our friends in the United States of America and some of the states, we know you guys primarily for your delicious, your outstanding small batch gin, Short Cross. And I think I've got most of the stock in Ontario in my cold room downstairs. However, that aside, this incredible gin aside, I believe that there's some very exciting news from the Short Cross brand about not only just expanding the high quality gin that you make, but also you've got some news on something else that's coming out.
Yeah, well, we've been, I suppose our big secret has been, well, there's maybe not such a big secret now, but we've been making single malt Irish whiskey for just over 5 years now. So we're hoping to bring our first release out sometime in this early summer. And so hopefully we're going to be recognized not just for our gin, but also for the great whiskey that we know we've been producing here over the last sort of 5.5 years. So exciting times for sure.
Absolutely. Well, no doubt if you guys made it, we know it's going to be quality, because just from the one gin that we can get across the miles here, it's outstanding. So we know it's going to be quality. So that's very exciting news. Now, David, when we talked back in the summer of last year, and it's hard to believe it was that long ago, time goes so fast these days. But we talked about what the inspiration was for you and for Fiona to create the gin side. Would you mind sharing what the inspiration was to dive into the world of whiskey?
Yeah, well, I suppose, excuse me, I suppose the inspiration for us has always been about bringing back that sort of heritage of distilled spirits back to Northern Ireland. And whiskey was always, you go back to, I think, to 1908, of the in terms of the exports of Irish whiskey, what we call Northern Ireland was actually the biggest producing region on the island, on the whole of the island of Ireland. I think it was like 2/3 of all the whiskey exported went through NI. So we've a lot of history and heritage here. But just before we launched our gin, we were actually at the American Distilling Institute conference in Seattle in March of 14. And we saw guys that were making whiskey on a scale that was way, way bigger than anything that we would have on site now, and also a lot smaller. And it sort of was a little bit of a light bulb moment, because we were sitting enjoying a lovely cocktail in the bar in Seattle. And we sort of said, if we're going to look to really grow and develop what we're going to do with the distillery, we're going to need to just think about doing more than one sort of product line around gin. And we're always big believers that you should make what you love. And it just so happens I like malt whiskey. So having seen these guys that were producing whiskey at various scales and various types of whiskey, we thought, you know what, we've got the beautiful copper. Why not look at seeing what else we need to make whiskey? And in essence, what we needed then to be able to do was to make a beer, because at its heart, malt whiskey is nothing more than distilled beer, less the hops. So we spent a year designing on fabricating our brewing plant. It arrived in early spring of 2015, and we've done our first distillation runs in sort of June 15. And since then, we've just steadily been in the background, quietly just been laying down casks of malt whiskey. And
Fantastic.
I suppose one of the things that we wanted to bring back, Paul, was that I love smoky whiskey. So we're the first distillery in Northern Ireland since in over a generation to actually distill peated malt whiskey. So that's going to be a big calling card for us as we start to bring out our whiskies over the next couple of years.
Wow, that's very exciting. And first off, thank you for mentioning the fact that, Northern Ireland and the Belfast region, but the North did have a thriving whiskey production history that, those of us here, in North America, we only know really Jameson because, when IDL and all those guys formed 45 years ago, that's all we saw here for the most part. And you'd occasionally see a little bit of Bushmills, but people forget that the north of Ireland, or Northern Ireland, was the hub for many, 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 many years. So it's good to see all of that coming back again, and good on you guys to revive that, that spirit, pun I guess intended, of distilling craft spirits and craft whiskey again up in the north. So that's fantastic. Now, when you talk about peated whiskey, that's really interesting, because I think there's only one other in Ireland that does a true peated whiskey. There is someone else, I believe, that uses peated casks to try and throw some of that in. What's going to be your approach, if you don't mind me asking? Are you going to heat the barley or heat your grains over a peat fire?
Yeah, well, we're quite lucky. We were able to source a really, really great supply of peated malted barley. So it's coming into us. It's probably one of the most smoky mash bills out there.
Wow.
Certainly in terms of what's produced in the island of Ireland. So it gives us a lot of flexibility for how we're going to approach our malts. We can have no smoke, we can have a little smoke, or we can have a lot of smoke. And I think that gives us the opportunity to have a lot of fun over the next few years. But for me, I fell in love with whiskey actually at an airport tasting where I got to try the Connemara Turf Moor, which was their original cast strength peated malt. And I just fell in love with the intensity of smoke. So whenever we made the call that we were going to do malt whiskey, for me, peat had to be an element of what we wanted to do. It's not all that we do, but certainly it's something that we have a real interest and a real passion about. So we're really looking forward to seeing that coming out as we develop our range of whiskies.
That's fantastic. You know, David, when it is safe to travel and when I am able to go over and see my family just down the road from you, and of course come to Redmond Estates and Shorecross itself, my credit card is going to be so tired when I leave. I'm gonna have to bring another suitcase just for the gin and for all the whiskey that's coming back. And if anyone from Customs Immigration Canada is listening, no, I'm only joking. So it's going to be very, very interesting, especially on the peated side, because people that know whiskeys know that Irish whiskey is very different from Scottish whiskey, not only because of the technique that's involved, where most of Scottish whiskeys are only double distilled, where most of Irish whiskeys are triple distilled, although there are crossovers. But the climates are different, right? Each little region of Ireland has almost its own microclimate. So the peat that comes from Scotland is going to be very different from the peat that comes from Ireland. So very, very intrigued by what you just told me. That's fantastic. And folks, you heard it here first with David Boyd Armstrong, giving us a little secrets on what's to come. Fantastic.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing as well, Paul, is that we're one of the few that we're proud to be double distilling our spirits, so we're going to have a much greater range of flavors than some of the guys that are focused on triple distillation. But I suppose the other thing is we're fascinated with fermentation. So your typical malt whiskey distillery ferments their brews for maybe 60, 70 hours. We're sort of pushing that out to 148, 160 hours. So we have a lot more up our sleeve than just playing about with different styles of malt and everything else.
Fantastic. Well, and it's that type of innovation, David, that makes Shorecross gin so delicious and so fantastic and so wonderful. So, again, really excited to be able to taste what you guys are doing, when I can. And that's a good point as well. It's a good reminder that, although a lot of Irish whiskeys are triple distilled, that's not the law. There is no law saying that Irish whiskey has to be triple distilled. There are others that are double distilled, and that doesn't mean it's any better or any worse than anything else. It really comes down to the innovation behind it and the creativity. So great stuff. David, the water. Now, water is a big part of whiskey, right? You mentioned before beer is essentially a beer that's distilled. So, you've got your grains, you've got your water, which is a key component. Are you guys able to use a local water source for the whiskey?
Yeah, well, there's an aquifer that cuts through the estate. So we take our water from about 70 meters or 200 feet below the surface. So we get nice, pure, clean, mineral-rich water. We are part of the Mournes topographically, so our water's a little hard, but it's perfect for what we want to use it for. It's when we go through the brewing process, everything seems like it. The yeast is happy, and that's the best sign that we know that we've got good water.
Now, I do have to ask, David, I mean, Irish whiskey is having such a resurgence, especially in the last 20 years. And, in the last 5 or 10 years, it seems like almost every other month, there's a new either distillery or a new bonder, where I'm starting to see a lot more bonders now pop up on the island of Ireland. So whether it's the North or the Republic, and again, just a reminder to everybody, Irish whiskey, we call them laws, but it's actually, there's a different term for it, but they're not really laws, but it's kind of the specifications that's put out. But to be Irish whiskey, it needs to be distilled on the physical island of Ireland, and then you call it Irish whiskey. Whiskey is not political. Doesn't care if it's the North or the Republic. If it's on the island and it follows a couple of other protocols, it's Irish whiskey. So that being said, David, the North is seeing a boon. The Republic is seeing a boon. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, you've dove into it yourself, but do you have any concerns that the market may be getting a little oversaturated, or that we may end up with lower quality whiskeys produced, in great quantities, kind of like what happened in the late 1800s?
I think, obviously we're members of the Irish Whiskey Association, so I think it's great to see the growth of the category return. It's something. Distilled spirits is something on the island, and regardless if it's the North or the South, it's something that we do really, really well. I think new distilleries and maintaining the quality of spirit produced is going to be the key. There's a lot of brands out there. There's a lot of people that are going to, like any booming industry, there's a lot of people that are going to try and jump in and make a quick buck or two. For us, it's all about focusing on quality. And I'm a great believer that if the industry as a whole focuses on quality, that will keep it rising, and that's the most important part. quality and innovation.
David, for those of us here across the miles, North America, I know you mentioned you expect a summer release of your whiskies, in the north of Ireland, in Northern Ireland. Any idea when we might be able to get a little taste or see some of it over on this side?
I know initially we'll be able to ship directly to you guys from our online store. So, although we might not be available in the liquor stores, we are able to, as far as I know, ship across to you guys in the US and Canada. So, that's probably going to be the quickest way of getting our whiskey, but hopefully sometime probably later in 2022, we'll be able to start to see our first exports into North America of our whiskey.
Well, if there's a way that you can ship direct to Canada, I will be customer number one, and I will be emailing you my home address and my cell phone number and my fax number and all my social media, so that I can be the first one to taste that. That's exciting times. Excellent. David, this has been fantastic. Some incredible information, some teasers as well, which is great. I'm excited for both yourself and for Fiona. Please give Fiona my regards. I'll absolutely be eagerly awaiting my opportunity to try your whiskeys, when we can get them here. Thank you again for spending your time with me today. I wish you both very much success on the whiskeys, and of course, much continued success on the Short Cross brand of gin as well. I love it. It's a bargain. It's amazing. All the best to you, David. And just before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add or share about the whiskeys?
No, I think
or the gin.
Yeah, well, look, we've got we're always up to something new and exciting. So if you want to follow us on @Shortcross Gin or @Redemption Estate Distillery on Twitter and Instagram, that's the best way of keeping up to date with what we have planned. And trust me, we've got some great things coming this year.
There you go, folks. You heard it from David. So give them a follow on social media. Absolutely. I can attest to the beauty of the photos. It's going to make you fall in love with Ireland all over again. And then, before I forget, folks in BC, because I do have some family, I do have some friends in British Columbia. Very good news. David's telling me that it's July, David, that Short Cross Gin is going to be, or is anticipated to be available in British Columbia.
It certainly is. So we're looking forward to getting to seeing Short Cross arrive on the West Coast. So it's exciting times.
There you go. The West Coast of Canada is about to get a lot more tasty. Fantastic stuff. Thank you once again for your time, David. All the best.
Okay. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. So always a great time chatting with David. Honestly, I cannot wait to get back to Ireland and to visit Short Cross in person. My liver may not thank me for that, but so be it. Also, don't forget to give them a follow on Twitter and Instagram @Shortcross. Also, the Radman Estates. Here they are on Instagram. Here they are on Twitter. Give them a follow. You'll be able to stay up to date with all the great going-ons with them. So, folks, thank you all again for joining me for this very special edition of Whiskey on a Sunday with me, Somm4All. However you are choosing to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, please do it safely. Have fun, stay well, and Sláinte from Somm4All.